Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss something about logical reasoning section of the Olympiad that you've appeared for, and we are going to discuss the various solutions, various questions that you've attempted in the Olympiad. We are going to take the section one by one. We are going to pick up passages one by one. So let's move on to passage number 1. Passage number 1 talks about various laws. So we pick up the first para. First para talks about the implications of the various laws that have been implemented, and the implications have been that right of freedom of people have been curtailed. The laws were brought into picture to protect the national security. Instead of protecting the national security, they are hampering the freedom of choice of freedom of people. Second para talks about certain amendments, constitutional amendments. They again have been not up to the mark. These amendments were beyond the legal powers of the constitution. And the third para talks about that state should not interfere in the religious affairs of the country. State should stay away from the religious affairs of the country. Now we pick up questions one by one. Let's talk about question number 1, which is related to the main idea of the passage. When you talk about first question, obvious answer is option number A. Why option number B, C and D are not the answers? B is just an example. C is just one of the points mentioned in the passage. In D, communal and religious tolerance has prompted proposing and making of laws. It is not only communal and religious tolerance, there are other things also which have prompted to make the laws. Therefore, D also goes out of the answer choice. So, the right answer to the question is option number A. Whenever we talk about main idea should be something which would have everything under its umbrella, everything should come in. So, the right option is option number A. Let's move on to question number 2. Question number 2 talks about strengthen the author's argument. What is author's argument? Author says that state should not interfere in the religious matters of the country. Now, let's look at the options, and the right answer is option number C. Option number C is the right answer because both the options talk about interference of the state in religious affairs. Let's move on to the next question. Let's move on to question number 3. Which of the solutions will the author agree with most? When you look at the options, the right answer is option number B. Why option number B? If we go back to last para, third line, that is where we can extract the answer from. Option number A, lawyers. It is not only lawyers that the author is talking about, so that is why it goes out of the answer choice. C, journalists. Journalists have not been talked about. This is not related to the context, irrelevant answer choice. That is why C goes out of the answer choice. Similarly, in D, citizens have been talked about. That is why this is not the right answer choice. So, the right answer choice is option number B. Let's move on to the next question. We're moving on to the next question. When we look at question number 4, question itself, these issues, which issues? We have to look at those issues, and the right obvious answer is option number D. This is the most obvious answer. Easy question, should have been attempted without any difficulty. Let's move on to the next question. This question talks about assumption. Must have attempted this question. For answering this question, you have to analyze each and every option and relate it to the part of the passage where they are coming from. So, first option is coming from para number 1, and it is an assumption. If you go back to para number 1, you can relate to the lines, and it is an assumption. Option number B and C, they are coming from para number 2, and they are also the right assumptions of the author. So, the right answer is all of the above. Let's talk about passage number 2. First, let's talk about the brief of the passage. What is the passage all about? Passage is all about the journey starts from the liberalization process and how it has helped in providing employment to women. First para is all facts and data driven. There are certain facts and data given in the first para. Second para talks about how the importance have always been given to in policies to funding education for women, and as the journey continues, because of COVID, certain restrictions or reductions were done in funding towards women education. Now, the author in the last line tries to suggest that we should, what government should or what other institutions should do to increase the funding in the female education, so that they continue going for their education, and do not hamper the learnings that they have been doing through education. So that is just a small brief of what the passage is all talking about. Now let's get back to the questions. Let's look at question number 1. Which of the following can be inferred from the passage? So the obvious answer to this question is option number C. If we refer to second line in para number 1, it says that maximum number of increase in jobs employing women were in service sector. Let's move on to the next question. When we look at this question, this reduces women's expected return to education. And if we look at this word this, what is this pointing towards? If you refer back to the passage, this points towards women losing jobs. When they lose job, they lose confidence in what? Getting education. So the right answer is option number C. C is the right answer. When we look at this question, which of the following actions of the government will the author agree with to support and encourage all women to continue their education and employment? What is the reason why women are not continuing education is their fear that they would not get jobs. Anything that provides financial aid or support to the women would help in solving this question. So when we look at the options, all three options are in a way trying to give certain kind of financial assistance to the women. So therefore the right answer is option number D. First, second and third, all the options are right options. When we look at question number 9, this is an easy question. Obvious answer is option number B. If you read first few lines of the first para, you can easily come out with the right answer. Let's move on to next question. The next question says, which of the following statements can be inferred from author's suggestion to the government in the last few statements of the passage? The obvious answer is option number 1. Why option number 2 is thrown out of the answer choice? It says without such efforts, this crisis stands to push female education and status of women to the point of no return. It says no return and condemn them to eternal servitude. No return and eternal servitude, irreversible action. It is not what has been talked about by the author. That is why it goes out of the answer choice. Let's move on to the next passage. Next passage talks about something about the coal industry. The coal ministry is saying there is no shortage of coal, while at the same time the thermal power plants are feeling the crunch. They are feeling that they are not getting enough supplies of coal to maintain their activities. Now, further down in the passage, they are talking about reasons for the mismatch of demand and supply. Further down in the passage, they are talking about why there is a bounce or a jump in the supply, because certain reasons have been given. And finally, in the concluding part of the passage, they are talking about Coal India's role, how Coal India has not been able to keep pace with in the past also has not been able to keep pace with the demand that has been there in the market, and what all should be done. That is what the author is trying to suggest. Now let's get back to the questions. We're going to get back to the questions. Let's look at question number 1. The right answer is option number A. Option number B is one of the reasons. is one of the reasons, not the main reason. Again, option number B is again one of the reasons, not the main reason. And similarly, monsoon and infrastructural constraints delayed the delivery. So the right answer is option number A. Let's move on to the next question. So when we look at this question, it has to weaken the idea that states facing power shortages have thus been forced to buy power at much higher rates on the exchanges. If they are facing power shortages because of a lack of supply of coal, so they are forced to buy power at high rates. If we look at option numbers A, B and C, they are easy eliminations out of the answer choice. The right answer is D. States had been provided electricity at subsidized rates by the central government. Let's move on to the next question. The next question, which says, to strengthen the argument, there are signs of the situation getting better. We focus on the word better. In each and every option, if we find something is moving towards the betterment of the production of the coal or betterment, then the statement is strengthen. And if we look at the options, which says option number 1, consumption of 1.8 million tons, 1.92 million tons of coal was dispatched. So from 1.87, 1.92. So there is an improvement. Next, daily coal dispatches to thermal power plants are up from 1.5 billion tons at the beginning of the month to almost 1.9. So from 1.5 they are moving on to 1.9. So again this is moving towards the better part of the thing. Next, the buildup in coal stocks is consistently improving, with the highest buildup of last 6 months being observed yesterday. This is also saying it is moving towards the better part of the thing. So the right answer is option number D. All the options are right. Move on to the next question, which talks about assumption, and the right answer is option number C. Why option number C? If we go to para number 1, line number 6, you can easily relate to the answer. Why we have eliminated out other options as the answer choice? Because when we look at option number 1, which says judicious use of electricity will की जगह may आता तो आंसर सही हो सकता था. Will definite हो जाएगा. May shows some probability. We cannot definitely comment through this, but we can may probability. Next is some situations occurred earlier and resulted in shortages. This is a restatement of the premise which is given in the passage. So restatements are never assumptions. This is eliminated out of the answer choice. D, discoms can dictate terms of usage to their customers. Word dictate, here the word urge is being used. There's a difference between dictate and urging. Urging is a strong request and dictate is you want that thing to be done in the same manner. That is why option number D has been eliminated out of the answer choice. Let's move on to the next question, which says can be inferred out of the passage. Option number D is an easy obvious answer, mining and extraction, if you focus on the last few lines of the passage. So with this we have come to an end of the discussion of the passage number 3. Now we are going to move on to the next passage, passage number 4. Passage number 4, which talks about northeast region. The passage says that northeast region was considered to be one single unit, which is quite a dilemma. Instead of being a one single unit, it has always been divided either by territorial divisions during the colonial time, or through certain political party divisions, certain people following certain parties, X party, other people following Y party. Why this thing came into highlight, why this region came into highlight was a message tweeted by two different ministers of two different parties talking about that particular region. This is what all has been talked about in the passage. Now let's get back to the discussion on the questions. So let's look at question number 1. The obvious answer is option number C. Why not other options? Let's look at the reasons for why option number A has been eliminated out of the answer choice. Recent violence is not about regional skirmishes or ethnic clashes, but a political dispute. It is not only political dispute, it is both regional and political. That is why it has been eliminated out of the answer choice. If you look at word but, it is not that, but political. It is not only political, both the things were involved in the thing. Next is option number B, which highlights rose tinted glasses. It is not, because of this goes out of the answer choice. That is not given in the passage, so it goes out of the answer choice. Option number D, when we look at option number D, historically the disputes in the Northeast have been orchestrated by the British, who arbitrarily drew the state boundaries. Historically, out of context, this is not related to the context, therefore this goes out of the answer choice. Let's move on to the next question. When we look at question number 17, it says describe the behavior of the two chief ministers. All of the above is the right answer. Reckless, immature and incendiary. Why reckless, immature and incendiary? Both of them tweeted on a social website. So tweeting live is not a mature behavior. Recklessness, why? Carelessness. They did not consider what are going to be the repercussions of doing such acts. And incendiary means bhadkane wala, aag lagane wala. Obviously you are tweeting live on particular incident, then it would lead to certain consequences which would be not good for the country, not good for the nation as a whole. Let's move on to the next question. When we look at the next question, as per the passage, which of the following qualities are imperative for resolving border disputes? Obviously, the right answer is option number B. If we look at 8th line of the para, it talks about beyond the immediate question of resolving interstate disputes which require, which mane kya? So when we look at this line, resolving interstate border disputes, which require, which resolving interstate disputes, what all is required? Empathy, political will, negotiation. So empathy is sensitivity, tactfulness is negotiation, political determination is will. That is why B is the right answer. Let's move on to the next question. The obvious answer to the next question is B. We are talking about homogeneity. Homogeneity in terms of what? Homogeneity in terms of cultural, political and religious. Homo is same. So the right answer is option number B. Enforcing the rule that Hindi will be a compulsory language to study in all schools and educational institution. Homogeneous ho jayega. Let's move on to the next question. Next question talks about which of the following about the Northeast will the author agree with. Author का agreement किस चीज पे Northeast से related? Right answer is all of the above. If you look at option number A, you can go back to the passage, line number 11, and you can easily find the answer. Option number B, go to line number 12 and you can easily relate to the answer. Option number C, go to line number 16 and you can easily relate to the option. So the right answer is option number D. Now let's move on to the next passage. So let's get back to passage number 5. The passage number 5 talks about something about Jim Corbett Park. The first para talks about how different names were given to the park. Initially it started with Malcolm Haley, then it was named after a river, Ramganga, then again it was rechristened to Jim Corbett. It was rechristened to Jim Corbett National Park. Now in the same paragraph they're talking about one of the ministers again wanting it to rechristen to Ramganga National Park, and that proposal has kind of put in some worry into the thoughts of the people, that they are thinking that now this name changing spree will also get into the area of conservation. Next paragraph that is talking about, second paragraph is talking about the certain part of Jim Corbett's life history, and then in the later part of the paragraph they are talking about his acquaintance with G.B. Pant and how G.B. Pant brought certain things into the structure of the Corbett National Park. So that is what the passage is all about, and now we are going to discuss the questions related to the passage. Let's look at question number 21, which says author will disagree with. Author will disagree with, obviously option number A is the right answer. Why? B and C, we cannot comment anything upon option number B and C from the passage, agreement, disagreement, therefore B and C go out of the answer choice. Similarly goes with option number, same thing goes with option number D. Let's move on to the next question. Next question, which says which of the following if true would strengthen the idea. We have to strengthen the idea. Which idea? In more ways than one, Corbett National Park is a testament to the well-known adage of historians. What is that adage? Past lives in the present. Past lives in the present. Option, obvious answer, easy question, obvious answer is option number A. Let's move on to the next question, which talks about weakening the argument, weakening the contention that the name of the Corbett National should not be changed. Why we should not change the name of the park? If we have to weaken it, we have to highlight certain negative points related to Jim Corbett that would weaken the argument. Obvious answer is option number D. Option number D. Recent evidences suggest that Corbett was involved in exploitation of the population in the area. He was involved in exploitation of the population. That means it highlights something negative about Jim Corbett. Rest of the options are comparative statements. Ye kar raha hai isliye main kar raha hu. That is not logically correct to reason out to come out with the right answer. Comparative statements are always thrown out of the answer choices. Next, we move on to the next question, which says which of the following can definitely inferred about Jim Corbett. Definitely 100% श्योरिटी से पैसेज में से जो चीज़ निकलेगी उसके बाद उसको आंसर की तरह मार्क करेंगे. Obvious answer is option number C. Why other options have been eliminated out of the answer choice? If we look at them, most famous. He was famous, but most we don't know from the passage. That is why it goes out of the answer choice. He was one of the few British who participated in India's freedom struggle. India's freedom struggle. Did he participate in India's freedom struggle? We cannot comment upon. From the passage, we can only comment upon that he was involved with British Army in the World Wars. Whether he was involved or did he participate in India's freedom struggle, we cannot comment upon. Therefore, this goes out of the answer choice. Did he create the natural reserve? We don't know about it from the passage. That is why it goes out of the answer choice. So, the right answer is option number C. Let's move on to the next question. Which of the following is an assumption by the author in the statement? It is about an assumption that minister's remarks have drawn justifiable outrage and stoked fears of a replay of the BJP government's name-changing spree in the realm of conservation. What has stoked fear among people? The remarks. So what is the assumption behind that? The assumption is option number A. People are entitled to interpret stray utterances by minister as an indication of policy direction. So the right answer is option number A. Okay, so let's start with passage number 6, the last passage on the logical reasoning section. This passage, first paragraph, talks about the increasing cases of coronavirus, especially focuses Kerala, which has had admirable track record as far as coronavirus history is concerned. What is making government worry is that since Kerala had such an admirable track record, then also the number of cases are going high. What will happen to the other states which were following the role model set by Kerala? In the second paragraph, they are talking about ICMR's reasons for worry about the rising number of cases in different states, and the reasons are that a few of the reasons that are stated is most of the people, a large percent of the people lack antibodies against the virus, and another one is people in the age group of 45 above have not been doubly vaccinated. These are the reasons for worry of ICMR. Now let's get back to the questions. Let's discuss the questions one by one. So let's move on to the questions. Question number 26. Which of the following will strengthen the argument? The obvious answer is option number B. If we look at option number A, nearly 80% of the mortality people have already died. So the highlighting thing is that they cannot be counted in. Therefore, A goes out of the answer choice. Significant number of people, a significant number of the population are yet to get sufficient protection. Vague hai, therefore this goes out of the answer choice. Let's move on to the next question, which says, so the right answer is option number C. Kerala's model was about social distancing, which is unsustainable. Baki sab assumptions hai. C is not the right assumption, therefore it goes out of the answer choice. Next, let's move on to the next question, which says author will not necessarily agree with. Right answer is option number A. B and C and D we cannot comment upon, therefore they are out of the answer choice. Let's move on to the next question, which says, so the right answer is option number C. Both 1 and 2 is an obvious answer, easy question. Let's move on to the next question. It can be inferred that author's primary concern is. Option number B is the right answer. Second paragraph की last की lines को अगर हम देखते हैं तो वहाँ से ये answer निकलता है. If you look at option number A, high number of tests in Kerala, high number of tests can never be a cause of concern. They are rather a cause of relief for the government or author or a general person. Low antibodies of Indians, yes, this is a cause of concern, but it is not the main cause of concern. Last के paragraph की, second paragraph की last few lines if you would read, you can easily relate to. Unrealistic vaccination targets. This is irrelevant to the passage because its targets have not been talked about. Therefore, this goes out of the answer choice. So, with this, boys and girls, we conclude with the analysis of the logical reasoning section of the Olympiad that you might have appeared for, and we're looking forward to few more Olympiads coming in the line and looking at the analysis to follow. That's it. Have a nice day. Have a good day.